The first slide. Welcome to our Gilbert Ambassadors. It doesn't get any better than this. And the enthusiasm and the energy. Some of you have been to our other two ambassador forums, and Mayor Lewis stood and he said the reason why we're getting together, and by the way, this is now the third one. Who's been to all three? Another round of applause for this group real fast to get us going. Thank you. For those of you who are here for the first time, there are a few of you because we have a couple of individuals I just met. We're calling them our newest Gilbert business, and you're part of this. And so as Gilbert ambassadors, we have a focus on making sure that we are informing you, that we are connecting you with other leaders, including the town of Gilbert leaders, and that as you leave, there's an immediate feeling inside where you've been encouraged and empowered to go out and continue being Gilbert ambassadors. In the history of Gilbert, we will see that this is a time of great business growth and coming together. And so our ambassadors, this is why we are together. And we don't have to just have a meeting like this to continue to do these things, but this is an emphasis on it, and so we thank you for being here. By way of announcement, you may hear this a few times in the next hour and a half. The theme today is getting Gilbert college and career ready. And this is the group that has been doing it and will continue to do it. And so the emphasis on this is some of the key things of how we're doing and what we can continue to do in the future. The format of the program. In addition to the welcome, I wanted to have 10 individuals stand, and after we've recognized you, we'll do a nice big round of applause for you. And a couple of them are still coming, but I'm going to go ahead and say their names. Elected officials, State Representative Warren Peterson, District 12, from our Gilbert Town Council, Vice Mayor Ben Cooper, Council members Victor Peterson, Council member Jen Daniels, Council member Jared Taylor. On behalf of two great congressmen, Representative Matt Salmon, District Director Chuck Gray, representing Congressman Paul Gosar, District Director Penny Pugh. On behalf of County Supervisor Denny Barney, Chief of Staff Bruce Bartholomew, Deputy Chief of Staff Candace Koppel, representing County Supervisor Steve Chukri, Chief of Staff Paige Gonzalez. And then, this is someone that I am very pleased and thankful that he would join us, our Executive Director of the Arizona School Boards of Associations, Dr. Timothy Ogle. Thank you for being here. Please give this group a nice big round of applause. We would have to take a couple of minutes and give you some Gilbert updates, and it still is tied to the theme, but to do that, we'll have our town manager, Patrick Bangerdu, come forward, and then he will pass the baton to our Director of Economic Development, Dan Henderson, and then we'll get back into the key part of the program, the theme. The other item I just wanted to mention, this is something that some of you are involved with, but when we're talking about getting Gilbert College and career ready, maybe this is just the opposite. This is getting us ready for this generation that can take technology and innovation to levels that we never even dreamed of. And so our Gilbert Digital team, and at the back of the room, they happen to have, let's see if I find my card. Oh, let's see. I gave it out to someone, but okay. Jennifer, you can hold that up. At the back of the room is a little card, and it's from our Gilbert Digital team, and this is our team that is taking us internally to new levels as far as communication, and every way that you'd like to receive communication, they can do it. They have worked with a couple of great organizations, the ASU Polytechnic Campus, and this corporation that they tend to get involved in education and do some good things, Intel. And with joint sponsorship, the town of Gilbert has reached out to high school students across the state and invited them to participate in this Spark App League. And so what is happening, we have high school students that have joined in teams, and they are creating apps with information that we have given them from the town of Gilbert, and in competition with lots of great prizes. And you know what happens to our youth when there are prizes in competition? They are involved. May 1st, we will finish the judging and announce the winner. So be on the lookout for that. But again, this is happening right now. We thank Gilbert Digital for their efforts, and pick up a Gilbert Digital card as you leave. So the Gilbert updates. Please welcome Town Manager Patrick Banjer.
Thank you, Mayor. Good morning, everybody. It's been almost 2 years now, but for those of you who I have not met yet, my name is Patrick Banjer. I'm the town manager here in Gilbert. It's been a wonderful experience, and we have done a lot of great things and a lot of good things to come. Quickly, I'll tell you a little bit about some things we've done in our Development Services Department to improve the experience for businesses that are in town and looking to remodel, expand, relocate. And for the new businesses coming to our community, it can be a very difficult process getting through the planning and zoning, the design review board, the building permit review and inspection process. So we're continually evaluating our process and finding ways that we can streamline that for you, because we understand that time is money for you. And once the clock starts ticking and you've got construction loans and you've got financing going, that every second of delay through our process is money that it costs your business right from your bottom line. So I won't spend a whole lot of time on this. You can go to the Town of Gilbert's website. We have a digital newsroom where we post a lot of informational videos and updates. We've got a nice short clip that will describe in more detail the processes that are listed up here on the screen. But very quickly, it has to do with we call it the one-stop shop over in Municipal Building 2, that's Building 90 here on our campus. And essentially, those front counter people are now trained and cross-trained to essentially handle every service that we offer over there, from business licensing to handle a sign permit. We've also created some new plan review options, again, to help speed up that process. With certain size projects, we can do an over-the-counter permit right then and there. You won't have to come back to get it. We'll review your plans, we'll mark them up, and we'll issue your permit that day. Express permitting, permit by appointment for slightly larger projects, which we're going to need maybe a couple staff members involved in that. We're going to have to spend more time reviewing those plans. We'll actually schedule a time for you to go through those plans. And again, the goal being hopefully get that permit out to you that day or possibly within a couple days. One and done. This is a process whereby you submit your plans. We mark those up with some changes to bring it into compliance with our codes. And you can then, as opposed to resubmitting that to your architect and having them make those changes and resubmit to us, all of which can start the clock running on review periods and delay your project, you can take those plans that are marked up in red, we will seal those plans, and you can use those plans to construct off of in the field. So again, you don't have to come back. We don't have any extra steps. We don't have any additional costs for you, and our inspectors will use those plans to then inspect the project when they come out in the field. And then at-risk plan review. So more things to come. We continue to evaluate this area to look for improvements, and again, go to our town website under our digital newsroom. We've got a nice little video up there for you to watch. So thank you for coming today. I'll turn it over to Dan Henderson. He'll talk to you about some of the updates going on in economic development. Thank you.
Patrick, thank you, and welcome. This is great. Look at this. We've got some folks standing in the back of the room, and what a beautiful morning. Having Gilbert College and Career Ready is paramount, but so is having a development services process that's open to business. It really allows the investment and the development side of community development to be responsive to the business needs in order to assemble property, make investments happen, and bring jobs and investment into the community. Well, as Patrick said, my name is Dan Henderson, and I'm the Economic Development Director for the town of Gilbert. And I'm here to give you an update about our economic development efforts, in particular our strategic plan. I always like to start these presentations with our mission, which is to attract, retain, and grow business and industry to the community. Around the July 2011 timeframe, we coalesced an initiative around a 5-year strategic plan focused on STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. Why STEM? Well, a couple of reasons. Quite honestly, we have the education systems here in Gilbert that are graduating these types of students. We certainly have the colleges and universities statewide that are graduating these students and putting a very educated and active and young workforce into play. So making Gilbert College and Career Ready is paramount to the success of our 5-year strategic plan. That process that took place in 2011 really opened up the opportunity for us to comprehensively engage the community, a national audience as well as an international audience from a public involvement perspective, to help us focus on the strategic areas that would allow us to deploy a 5-year plan around science and technology. The core areas that we focused on were human capital, capacity development, business development, and marketing and communications. The role of those areas of focus really transcended into some fundamental goals, which was bring jobs to the community. So in that 5-year strategic plan, we have a 5-year goal to grow, announce, and retain 10,000 jobs over the next 5 years. Equally as important is growing and attracting investment into the community, and we targeted a goal of about $1.1 billion in capital investments that will include approximately 200 companies to really help us obtain that 10,000 jobs. We want those jobs to have disciplines within science, technology, engineering, and math, because those are the areas, those are the industries that have high growth associated with it. They have net wealth associated with it. They have high wages. But a 5-year strategic plan focused on jobs and capital investment wasn't enough. We wanted to look at some of the systems that were in place that would allow us to create a plan or a framework of a plan through build-out. And we thought that one of the things we needed to do was take an internal look at our systems and our programs, our funding, our resources, our staffing, the markets that we're looking at, the industries that we're focused on. And one of the ways that we felt that would help us put into place those systems was an accreditation process that came in and served as an auditing process for it. And this process is known as an Accredited Economic Development Organization. The role of the AEDO, or the Accredited Economic Development Organization, as I said, creates those systems, those activities, that best-in-class approach to economic development. We've spent the better part of the year focused on that strategic initiative, making Gilbert a program, a set of systems that would allow us to be accredited. And we are in the final stages, kind of rounding that last phase, that last hurdle of that accreditation process. We'll have a group come into town and look at our systems, look at our processes, interview staff, interview stakeholders in the community, and really help us look at our strengths, our weaknesses, where those opportunities lie for us to grow and enhance, and really put into place a model that nationwide has only one other municipality in its entire accrediting certification accredited. So to be clear, if Gilbert were to obtain this certification, that would be the second municipal organization to obtain this accreditation nationally. Equally as important is it would be the first in the state of Arizona to obtain this accreditation. And again, it's not about the accreditation. It's about building a 5-year strategic plan that helps us obtain these goals and these objectives, but also laying in those legacy systems that allow us to grow and expand. We think through those systems that we will develop more leads, more conversion, and some of that really translates into more bites at the apple. So much of what we're doing in these first couple of years of the 5-year strategic plan is building a model, building a system, building an office of economic development that will create more leads, self-generate leads, and ultimately convert those to some of the goals that you see here today. So I leave you with this 5-year plan, focused on jobs, focused on STEM, and that's what brings us here today. STEM. We're going to hear from a group of individuals, a panel of industry that talks about the role of science, technology, engineering, and math in the overall community, as well as the principles needed to create a community or a community development process that allows us to grow, attract, and retain science, technology, engineering, and math companies, occupations, and students. So with that, I'm going to hand the mic back over to Mayor Lewis, and I thank you for your time.
Another thank you to this group, because what Patrick was talking about that has been happening in our development services was feedback that came from Gilbert ambassadors. And so what has now been implemented were suggestions, thoughts, and ideas that came from this group. And also the 5-year strategic plan that Dan just mentioned was feedback that came from this group and helped us get the emphasis on that. So thank you. We move to the next slide that we have tried to have at least recognition. We could recognize all of you, but at least 1 or 2 people to be recognized. And so we have an award to give out today. There's an individual in council chambers. He doesn't know he's about to receive this award, so I'll put his picture up, and if you see him, point to him so he knows he's supposed to come up and stand right next to me in just a moment. All right, has anyone seen that young man in the audience? Anybody seen him? Oh, they're pointing. Come on down. The award that is going to be given out. And last week we had our annual Youth Leadership Summit, and we had Dr. Dave come down, and he stood, and I was telling the same thing. We had a room filled with our youth, and I said, now this is a very talented individual. He speaks Canadian. He's a marathon runner. He's a leader. And I talked a little bit to them about his leadership. But today I focus on the award that you're about to receive. As printed, it says, Dr. David Allison of the Gilbert Unified School District is hereby awarded the title of Getting Gilbert College and Career Ready MVP. Now, I know you're about to retire, and you can appreciate this. Can you hold this while I put my glasses on so I can read the rest of this? Thank you. That's teamwork. For his 20 years of dedicated service to public education. And I know it's been more than 20, but that 20 years is here in Gilbert. Dr. Allison's decades of commitment to a world-class education has inspired excellence among the district's 38,000 students and 4,600 employees, and has led the district to be recognized as an A district, the highest possible rank for student achievement. His tireless work to provide the best educational opportunities for students has made Gilbert Unified School District one of the premier districts in Arizona. We are grateful for the leadership and dedicated service Dr. Allison has provided to the citizens of Gilbert. Dr. David Allison, MVP for today. So getting Gilbert College and Career Ready. As Dan was just speaking, I come back to when Town of Gilbert officials, when ambassadors are out talking about Gilbert, what is it that sells Gilbert to businesses? It is education. And so education and economic development, they just kind of go like this. And to business leaders, we thank you for your involvement with education. And part of the ambassadorship today is just continue to be involved. The jobs that Dan talked about, we're 9 months into our 5-year strategic plan to get 10,000 new jobs, expanded jobs, added jobs in Gilbert. We don't do it without continuing to be premier education. Gilbert right now is the fastest growing community in Arizona. And when you talk to people about, well, why are you coming to Gilbert? Education. And it's both for children and it's workforce development. And so that's why those two words tie in with everything that we're talking about today, including that theme of getting Gilbert College and Career Ready. Some statistics, and there are several that will be shared today, and why the urgency and the importance in continuing to emphasize this and to be together. 2/3 of our gross domestic product depends on consumption. And therefore, for our community to have individuals that can live here and consume and help all the businesses and make everything continue to roll like happens in a thriving community like Gilbert, we need individuals to be in jobs where they can consume. Our future workers need to be trained. And some of the challenges that nationally, 25% of 9th graders will not graduate from high school. Of those who graduate, only 1 in 4 will be considered college ready. And so to a mayor, education and economic development are synonymous, and they go together, and so we work together. And part of bringing this together is a statement that I heard that has just resonated as such great value in considering this short, simple statement. There have been a lot of discussions in the country of an economic stimulus plan. And so my statement is that the best economic stimulus plan is a diploma. So getting Gilbert college and career ready, I think you know I like sports, and so I reference it this way, is a team sport. So here we are working together. I thank you again. I thank you what we've done, what we'll continue to do. And we will now transition to this theme to look at it from the eyes of just a few months ago with our Leadership Center directing traffic, bringing us together with this theme. We had another forum, and we've taken, through Gardenia and Gilbert Digital's help, just a short piece of that forum to bring it back, and then we'll continue on with a keynote and guest speaker. Gardenia. In the state of Arizona right now, 27% of those 25 and older have a college education. National average is 30%. Gilbert, we're proud that it's 38.8%, but we know that that is still too low if we are going to continue to build satellites and grow algae and fight cancer and conduct cardiovascular and stem cell research, and to take a nearby airport from 10 gates to 60 so that 20 million passengers a year will be coming right next to our ASU Polytechnic campus. And so if, for the leadership in this room, we were trying to find someone, a leader, who could talk to us about getting Gilbert college and career ready, who would we pick? And so now it's the short introduction. Please welcome our Arizona State University President, Dr. Michael Crow.
In the United States today, if you come from a family of the lowest quartile of economic well-being, but you are personally of the highest quartile of academic ability, you have a 15% chance of graduating from college. If you come from a family of the highest quartile of economic well-being, and you personally are of the lowest quartile of academic ability, you have an 80% chance of attaining a college degree today. The only way for that system to be broken down is to make certain that the great research universities in the United States model a different path, a path of success through inclusion around talent. The mayor and the other leaders that have put this meeting together are asking exactly the right question, which is, how do you get a community ready for the future? And you get a community ready for the future by focusing on college and career and technical career readiness. Because the world that was the past is no more. It's really hard for people to understand this. The thing that we have to do in terms of getting Gilbert college and career ready is to focus obsessively on innovation, obsessively on change, to accept no elements of the status quo, to measure everything, to relentlessly find people that can drive towards higher levels of learning capability. If we're really serious about this, we've got to get 100% of our children educated to what we think of as the 2013, 2015, 2020 level of what an American high school graduate needs to know. Tomorrow's students cannot be the same as today's students.
I just feel the urge to have, for business leaders to see and to know, we have right here at the forefront some of the finest education leaders in the country. Would those of you who that is your full-time assignment, full-time profession, are education leaders from Gilbert, would you please stand and be recognized? And we thank you for some of the team members in some of the booths that were on display, some of the things that are happening, some of the STEM emphasis and great things that are occurring right here in our Gilbert area. So we transition from Dr. Crow. If for today's Ambassador Forum, we wanted to find the finest keynote speaker, we would pick our own Arizona State Superintendent of Public Education. And I'll give this brief introduction, and then I will give our superintendent the microphone as our keynote speaker. Dr. John Huppenthal holds a degree in engineering from Northern Arizona University and an MBA from Arizona State University. His political career, there are some wildcats here too, but we're all in this together, right? His political career includes serving as city councilman, state representative, and state senator. During Superintendent Huppenthal's more than 18 years at the Arizona State Legislature, he has successfully authored and passed over 200 bills, with a substantial number of them focused on improving education in Arizona. As Superintendent of Public Instruction, he is committed to preparing all Arizona students to be college and career ready and competitive in a global economy. Please join me in welcoming our State Superintendent of Public Instruction, John Huppenthal.
Mayor Lewis, thank you for that gracious introduction. Thank you for the invitation to be here, and especially anytime we come out to speak and we see this many people who are civically involved, we're impressed. So thank you for being here today and making the commitment of your time. Let's go back. We're having a lot of discussion now. It's been 30 years since the Nation at Risk report. So let's take us back to 1984 and say, what was the state of education then? And then take a look at what the state of education is nationally now, because I think that can provide us some important perspective. So let's go back to 1984 when they were doing the National Assessment of Educational Progress. It's considered the gold standard for comparing educational data, for comparing how the nation is now versus when it was. They pull a huge sample. They spent billions of dollars refining the techniques. So back in 1984, reading achievement for high school graduates was, by their scale, 267. So let's fast forward to 2008. High school graduation reading, high school graduates reading scores, 266. 267, 1984, 266, 2008. So in those decades, we've had thousands of brilliant minds who have hit the education system, put through reform after reform, and that's the result. It ought to make us all as policy leaders humble, very humble. And it also ought to make all of us as policy leaders a lot more attentive to great superintendents like Dave Allison, who have done a phenomenal job leading the Gilbert School District with very limited resources. An A district, graduation rates of over 90%. What we ought to be saying is we shouldn't be setting our standards based on our opinions off in a room, but we ought to be taking leaders like Dr. Allison and saying, okay, what should we do? So we should be mission focused, and like Alexander the Great, we should be out at the front line. So rule number one, we should be very humble as policy leaders, thinking that we can reform the universe from the center. So what I want to lay out is, I want to answer the question, how is Arizona unique? What are we going to do if all of these things that everybody's been doing the same for 40 years haven't worked? What are we doing in Arizona to be unique, to do something different, to do something that works? So let's start by answering those questions, and then we'll work this on out to Gilbert specifically. And I think Gilbert is a great place to come and talk about public policy issues. I was on the city council in Chandler, and I used to track excellence ratings of cities across the state. And I took a lot of pride in driving our excellence ratings higher. And when I left city council, we had the highest excellence ratings in the state. Well, there's a new #1 city in the state right now, and it's not very many people are aware of this, but Gilbert, the city of Gilbert, has the highest excellence ratings by its cities, rating the performance of city government, rating city services of any city in the state. And that's not a small thing. So I know Gilbert does public policy well. Great public schools, operated at a lower cost, a significantly lower cost than other districts. It's one of only a few handful of districts that have made the A grade. So this is, I know I'm in great public policy territory. So let's talk about how is Arizona different. #1 strategy that we've adopted over the last 2 decades for improving Arizona is school choice. We started by putting in place open enrollment. Not too many people are aware of this. So we have this school choice system over here called charter schools, and we are ranked by far #1 in the nation in charter schools. 140,000 students in charter schools. Roughly somewhere in the neighborhood of 13, 14% of our students. #2 in the nation is back at 6%, a huge difference. What people don't know is that we have just as much school choice in our district school system as we do in charter schools. We have somewhere in the neighborhood of another 140,000 students who, they don't attend the school that is in their neighborhood, they make a choice somewhere else. So our strategy has been school choice. And I've known from the beginning that this school choice would play out in a more complex fashion than some of the researchers said it would. When Milton Friedman came out here in the mid-90s, I said, Milton, I'm looking at this data, and I'm thinking this is going to, as we increase school choice, it's not going to go that straight, smooth path that a lot of people have been talking about. There is no correlation between parents' perceptions of quality and the academic gains of schools. And parents are going to make decisions based on their perceptions. I said, I think where you're going to see the benefits of school choice show up first is in the social indicators before it shows up in the academic indicators. And that's exactly what we've seen over the last decade. Unbeknownst to people, you don't read this in the papers, we've seen an astonishing change in juvenile crime statistics over the last decade. We've gone from, if you go back to the year 2000, we had on a per million students basis, 68,000 students who were arrested and processed by the juvenile justice system. 68,000 was per 1 million was the rate in 2000. That is now 42,000 in the most recent year. It's been on a steady march down. There hasn't been a discussion of that. 26,000, actually 30,000, we're at 1.1 million students now, so 30,000 students not arrested. That's a small city of people not involved in the criminal justice system. Not a small thing. So #1 is school choice. We have those indicators. And so all the more impressive what Dr. Allison's been able to perform here in the Gilbert Public School System, because he's had an enormous competitive environment. You have some phenomenal charter schools in the Gilbert, in the Gilbert area. EduPrize, an A-rated charter school, as competitive as it gets. So we know in this new environment, #1, support your policy leaders because they're doing a great job. Key off of them, great policies. So there's a lot going good in the Gilbert Public School System. So if he's retiring, job #1 is to make sure whoever follows him up does as well as he does, as well as he's executed, because he's at the very upper end in terms of performance of school districts. Now, what I'm doing to support the Dr. Allisons of the world is we are completely taking a Demings approach in the Department of Education. It's all about supporting superintendents, principals, school business officials. We measure the quality of service the same way the Gilbert Town Council does to achieve their top ranking, and we focus on excellence, not good, not satisfactory, excellence. And I know that as an agency, we have a lot of work left to do, but we're starting to march. And when we go out and talk to people, we're saying they're rating us higher and higher. It's all of these public service arenas, be it a city, or be it a school district, it's the day-to-day blocking and tackling that makes the difference between an A performance and a B performance. When somebody asks you a question, they have a technical difficulty to be resolved, solve it in 20 minutes, not 40, solve it in 10 minutes, not 20, solve it immediately if you can. So a superhuman focus on providing excellent support as the school districts is what I'm doing at the center. We're also a regulator. That means we have to keep the system between the white lines. That's a different way of thinking about customer service, but you do it with the lightest possible touch, encouraging people, not hammering them, guiding them and consulting with them, not hitting them with a load of paperwork. So we are doing enormous system improvements within our department. We think that there's a lot that we can do to be helpful to the leaders out in the school districts. We're on that mission. We have all the systems set up to ensure and back that up the same way that great entities like the town of Gilbert is doing. These are the processes they have set up internally. Now, we talk about this competitive environment. There's one area of education that we are very concerned about. It's career and technical education. The competitive marketplace really doesn't handle that well the way it's set up right now. So we're doing a lot to encourage career and tech ed. One of the things that we're very impressed with is the close relationship between the Gilbert Public School System and the East Valley Institute of Technology. Perhaps better than any other school district, they are informing students about the opportunities at EVIT. They have a good working relationship with EVIT, perhaps the best of all the membership districts. This career and technical education, as we look deep into the research, is critical if we're going to take that. So here, Gilbert has hugely outperformed statewide statistics on graduation rates. So if we're going to take that 90, 91, 92% that Gilbert has achieved and march that on up, we think that even providing more and more resources and focus on great quality career and tech ed is a key. Now, one of our beliefs about career and tech ed is it's not just for students who aren't going to college. We think it's a key for grabbing those students that Dr. Crow talked about, those students who come from the bottom 25% but have every ability to go on to college. We think the career and tech ed is the door by which they go to college. We don't think it's a door by which they don't go to college. We think it's a door by which they do go to college. And this is my personal experience. I'm one of those students. I grew up on the south side of Tucson. I grew up in a house that we built for $500. We drove a $40 car for 6 years. That's me. I took drafting in woodshop in high school and went on to get an engineering degree. So when he was speaking, I'm thinking, that's what we want to do. Students for which the education system is almost a foreign arena, that last 9% of the students we want to get a hold of, we think that career and tech ed is a way of gripping their imaginations, opening them up immediately to a job opportunity, but then also enabling them to realize, I can learn, I can win at this game, I can go on to college. When you go into EVIT, any class that you go into, and you ask those students, well, how many of you are going on to college? They all raise their hand. Career and tech ed is the door to college. It's not the door to not college. It's the door to opening up all bounds of opportunity. So we're focusing on the career and tech ed arena to a very significant degree, and we're very appreciative of the great relationship that Gilbert has with the EVIT. We intend to, in our future initiatives, to encourage that more. So let's go back over this. We think that to get students college and career ready, that A, we need great school districts like the Gilbert School Districts. We need people like yourself supporting them to the maximum extent possible. You need to really think through, as you elect school board members, how they're doing to support that mission and encourage it along. We think so support the school districts, set high standards for our students, make sure that we have a high benchmark. We have a lot of controversy going on about these standards that we've recently adopted, Common Core. We are going to work on through these standards. One thing about these standards, it's going to be a little bit of a shock for us all. Probably only about 30% of our students are going to pass those tests. They indeed are high standards. And when we get to the other side, we're going to have to all say, how do we, and what you're going to see is the Gilbert school system isn't going to be at 30% passing. They're going to be much higher than the statewide level. So these new high standards are going to separate the wheat from the chaff, and it's going to be a shock to the whole system, though. So, but we're going to be working on through the Common Core standards are going to be introduced and implemented over the next couple years, and we think one of the attributes of that is it's going to shine even more of a spotlight on the successful school districts, differentiating them from the ones that aren't so successful. So it's this mix of policies, high standards, support our school districts, and encourage career and tech ed, and also, above all, make sure that we maximize the opportunity for parents making choices so that they can pick the best school for their child is a combination of policies that we think is going to lead Arizona to excellence. And we know from our data that we are on the track upward. All of the stuff that you read in the newspapers, 47th, 48th, 49th, 50th, not a bit of it's true. When you very carefully and rigorously analyze our schools in Arizona, we're a slight notch above the national average. School districts like Gilbert, a huge notch above the national average. We have a lot better assets in the educational arena than are granted by the common media that you read there. And with that, Mr. Mayor, I'll turn it back over to you, and thank you for the opportunity to be here.
We better do a picture. And are you ready to be tweeted if this picture is successful? To our superintendent, one, or do you have, please?
Well, Mr. Mayor, you know, as well as you all do out here, the one thing I notice is your citizens beat up on you guys a lot. You know,
that's why I'm in good shape around here.
I know. I'm always thinking, gosh, you know, any other cities would kill themselves to have these kind of leaders. But I guess maybe that's why you guys do such a good job, is you have to stay one step ahead of some of your, you know, you guys take public policy seriously out here. It's not softball.
Remember, this is a team sport. So to our superintendent, one more big round of applause. Thank you. A special guest speaker, and she may get into this thing called STEM in a few more details. Beth Broom. Beth joined Science Foundation Arizona in 2010 as a consultant. She has been overseeing the integration of STEM into schools and the implementation of data analytics systems for the Arizona STEM network. Throughout her career, Beth has focused on workforce development and education issues, with a particular focus on program development and implementation. Please welcome a special guest presenter, Beth Broom.
Good morning. Thank you very much. It's always hard to follow Superintendent Huppenthal because he has such rich information to offer. But I'm here to talk a little bit more about the Arizona STEM Network, which is led by Science Foundation Arizona. And really, we are kind of the boots on the ground translation of all of the great efforts that the state is putting into place and is building upon. So just to give you a little context, Science Foundation Arizona was started in 2006 by then Governor Napolitano as part of a larger economic development initiative. Since that time, we have put $38 million into education programming across the state, in large part through partnerships with higher education. Through those programs, we have served over 8,000 teachers and 300,000 students. Because of the success we've had in that arena, and the greatest number of those programs were in the STEM disciplines, we were asked to formalize and lead the Arizona STEM Network. So in 2010, we set out across the state to develop a statewide framework for the implementation of STEM in schools, in the K-12 district and the higher education schools across the state of Arizona. What we came up with was a plan that was driven by the input from over 2,000 stakeholders across the state. It is a highly user-driven, outcomes-measured network. And it is underscored by three things. The first two are listed up here. How do we successfully implement the Common Core? Those are internationally benchmarked and state-adopted standards for English language arts and mathematics. Those come fully online with the next school year. So how do we effectively implement those? And then how do we effectively implement the next generation science standards? The next generation science standards were released in its final draft last week, and we hope to have those adopted in the state this year and implemented in the next couple of years in all the K-12 districts across the state. So how do we do that? We see STEM as one of the terrific vehicles for which you can deliver the science standards as well as the Common Core standards. The other thing that underpins the plan that we developed is that one of the lessons learned from Science Foundation is you can put all the money into the world, into great programs. When the grant goes away, so does the program. So how do we make our programs more sustainable? So we really developed 4 tenets with which to do this. The first is in response to a need that was articulated all across the state. We want our schools to be STEM focused. We want to put more STEM into our schools. We don't know what that looks like. We developed what is called the STEM Immersion Guide, which is being used across the nation right now to implement STEM into schools. What does STEM look like? We took it and developed it into 4 separate categories, from an easy entree point to a full immersion level, which is really taking a school from the traditional talk and chalk method to a classroom, which is student-driven, teacher-facilitated. We then looked at ways that we could strengthen teacher effectiveness. How do we help existing teachers, so those currently in service, as well as inform the pre-service methods for preparing teachers to teach to these new standards? How do we create opportunities to meaningfully engage business in the discussion? That was something that we heard in rural and remote Arizona, as well as Phoenix and Tucson. For the longest time, the way business has been engaged in education is to write a check. And given the current economic climate, as well as the fact that we are at a critical juncture with our education system, we needed to look at ways that we engage business in the discussion so that they can begin to help teachers make the relevant connections between what is being taught within the schools and how that applies to the workplace. When we look at the fact that business is our ultimate consumer, we have not produced the type of product over the last probably 20 to 30 years that we need to. So how do we bring business to the table? And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. And finally, how do we use the rich data that is available to us and develop and deploy predictive analytics systems so that that data can drive our decisions, can help inform our work, and can feed into a continuous improvement cycle. In the K-12 space, what you often find is that it moves at glacier speed. And what we came across as we talked to numerous teachers and educators at all levels is there are a lot of things that don't work in education. The simple question is, why are you doing this then? If it doesn't work, why are we doing it? What we need to do as a community is to develop the data and give teachers and schools permission to stop doing the things that don't work and to begin to use innovative approaches that do work. So in response to these 4 very important strategic concentrations, we have some current efforts going on. One of the things that we're doing is funding 7 districts across the state to implement and test our tool for STEM integration in schools. We had 122 districts apply. We took those districts through a highly competitive peer review process, and June 1st begins the funding cycle for the implementation of STEM for 3 years, where we can really measure the effectiveness of our interventions from start to finish. One of the other programs that we currently are working on, and we have some great partners out here in Gilbert with that, is the Informal Education Network. How do we capitalize on the relevant and the rich education that happens outside of the normal school day? Those are the experiences a lot of us remember when we think back on our high school or our grade school years. So the informal education, how do we take that and draw correlations into the classroom that impact student learning? We are developing a STEM mentoring program. This is one of our responses to engaging business in the conversation. We are pairing teachers, college or graduate students, and practicing STEM professionals, putting them in a classroom where they are developing and implementing project-based and problem-based type units so that kids are beginning to be able to explore real-world problems in a different way. They are given a problem to solve, and the real learning takes place in the solving of that problem. The business mentors are able to work with teachers to not only strengthen and deepen their content knowledge, but to really open their eyes to the connections between what's being taught in the classroom and the workplace of today. We fund and are helping to scale what's called the Master IP program, which is a program we developed with the University of Arizona, where we are providing business internships for teachers during the summer, where they are working in a business for 4 days a week, and the other day a week they spend in the classroom, and they are getting their master's degree in education. But the kernel of this that has been most successful is that the teachers are beginning to understand the connection to what business and industry needs today and what is not happening in the schools of today and how they can go ahead and begin to make those changes. We are developing STEM pathways. Currently, we have a STEM engineering pathways operational in 4 rural community colleges across the state. These are in pilot, as most of our programs are right now. Engineering pathways are early college opportunities for high school students focused around an area significant employer. So it's a very large economic development focus to this program. High school kids are given relevant non-seat-based time, early college opportunities, capitalizing on rich CTE programs. When they leave high school, they have 1 year of community college under their belt. They have an industry-recognized certificate, and in most cases, a job. The program that is furthest along is in Cochise County, where it is focused around mechatronics. We're doing some others relative to aerospace and defense and agriculture. But these kids are walking away with a job, the ability to continue on for 1 year at the community college with an associate's degree. And of the original 85, 75 are currently working and have completed associate degrees, and looks to be greater than 50% of them that are right now pursuing higher education. So the lessons learned from the engineering pathways are now being translated into what we call STEM teacher pathways. We are working as part of the 100K in 10 initiative, a national initiative to develop 100,000 qualified STEM teachers over the next 10 years. And that is a CEO and business-driven group to be able to fund our work. We are developing a STEM teacher pathway. We are taking high school kids who show interest or aptitude in the career of teaching, providing them with not only early college opportunities, with the development of a 4th-year math course and eventually a 3rd-year science course that begins to teach them the content that they know to teach middle school math, but also to develop an elective course through CTE, which will allow them to get opportunities to learn the pedagogy that goes along with the teaching of the content. And through a learning assistant program, pair high school kids with middle school teachers so they can begin to develop opportunities to teach math and science. We are looking at expanding our STEM pathway programs into other careers, some scientifically research-based, but we are self-funded, so those are kind of on the horizon. In addition, we are working with Intel to take a great program called Intel Math, which is one of the best professional development programs for content and mathematics, and repurpose that program using online tools and technology to be able to deliver that to rural and remote teachers in Arizona, and to develop a lower cost, more effective model of delivery so that all teachers can take advantage of these programs. Finally, we are developing what's called a knowledge management system. Our knowledge management system is the way to develop all of the tools and the models into a technology platform to be delivered online so that teachers, districts, schools, no matter where they're located, can access all of these tools. We are part of a larger network called STEMX. Again, highly user-driven, very innovative network. Right now we have 18 states. We started 2.5 years ago with 4 states. The commitment of STEMX is a national network of statewide STEM networks to help fill the critical need going on in education today. One of the things that STEMX asks is that all of its members take all of their lessons learned, all the tools they're developing, all of their innovative practices, and put those online so they become open source. So states can really leverage off of the good bodies of work that we're creating instead of reinventing the wheel. We don't have the money for that. We don't have the time for that. The other thing about STEMX is it is a way to drive a national conversation that in education, we need to be more responsive to the needs of our children. We need to be more responsive to the needs of our workforce. And it is our job to develop, lead, and implement a system where we have STEM as a vehicle to deliver Common Core, the next generation of science standards, and educate a generation of children that are not only STEM literate, but become good global citizens. So those are the 4 tenets of our plan. A couple other things that we are doing is working with an organization called Change the Equation, and this is a really significant thing for Arizona. Change the Equation is led by, it's a CEO group nationally, led by Craig Barrett, and Craig is on our board at Science Foundation, and early on we helped develop some design principles for Change the Equation. So how do you figure out what's happening, and of the things that are happening in education, what are the good things that are happening? What are the best practices? What are the promising practices? And if you look at that through a funder's lens, how do we begin to rate those programs? So Change the Equation has developed what's called the STEMworks database. After 1 year of accepting programs and evaluating those programs, there are only 32 nationally that meet the threshold of what they would call a best practice. Right now, we are in process of developing a statewide translation for that. So Arizona will become the first state that takes all of the rich programs we have developed through our universities, our community colleges, and some of our better school districts, and running them through that screen. We are not going to lower the threshold in terms of what makes a best practice, but we are putting a second category in called promising practices. We have programs that are really pretty far on their way to helping change the course of education in this state, but they may not have developed the level of evidence that would qualify them as a best practice. So a promising practice category is being added. This tool will be available to all schools, districts, and teachers, so you can go in and say, I am a teacher for 6th grade science, and I'm looking for a program that will assist me in the following ways and really help me to recruit females or underrepresented minorities. And up should pop 3 or 4 programs in Arizona that meet your criteria. So this is going to be one of the tools for teachers that we are working on building. We're very excited about it, and we have a lot of different states who have eyes on this program to see how this works. One of the things that's been very helpful is we've been able to engage about 6 or 7 different members of the business community to help inform this and really use their expertise for that. Finally, as I've alluded to, we are really looking at web-based tools for the implementation of the Common Core state standards and the next generation of science standards. For the teachers who are currently in practice, this is going to be a huge shift in what they have done in the past. And the current workforce, the teacher workforce, has not been trained adequately to do this. This is a total new game for us. And so we are looking at ways to get information out to teachers as efficiently and effectively as possible. Unfortunately, in Arizona, your proximity to Phoenix oftentimes dictates your proximity to resources. So a large part of our effort has had to really focus on how do you get this information out to teachers in rural and remote Arizona. Being in Phoenix, though, we are lucky enough to be able to have a cadre of teachers in districts, and Higley and Gilbert among them, who are able to inform the body of work and help us get this information out as it should. So just in conclusion, I would have to say that as you look at STEM education as the vehicle to deliver these new standards, think about two things. Number one, we owe this to the generation of kids that we're educating. We owe it to them to prepare them for college and career readiness. We have a lot of factors in play right now, and it's really kind of bringing those to maturity and figuring out which works best. And the second thing is for the business community. The most significant thing you can do over the next couple of years is to help give voice to the fact that we really need these new standards. And we're not going to change the cut score on the test. So when you've had this generation of kids who are proficient and who really are walking away with a 9th or 10th grade education when they have an Arizona high school diploma, and now they're being told that they're only 9th or 10th grade proficient, we're going to need the support, because the public outcry over that is going to be very difficult. And we will need the business community support to be able to continue to do this good work. So thank you for the opportunity to be here today.
It's the same thing, another tweet picture. Here we go. Another big round of applause for Beth Broom. Thank you. We'll invite the panel members to come forward, our panel moderator to come forward. And while this group is coming down for the last part of today's Ambassador Forum, the video that you saw of Dr. Crow was a few months ago. And at that setting, with our theme of getting Gilbert College and career ready, we also had a panel discussion, but in that case, it was our education leaders. We had from Arizona State University, and then Dr. Lujan from Chandler Gilbert Community College. We had representatives, superintendents from Higley and Gilbert, and some of our charter school leaders. And so today we are switching it to have some of our Gilbert business leaders as part of the panel to talk about this theme. The panel moderator is someone that I think the world of. Jim Hayden, Gilbert resident, 5th generation Arizona, and this is what they look like after 5 generations. He's an individual that has a wonderful business career, great leader, current company, board developer. And so he's in charge of boards around the country, and especially here in the Arizona area, of developing boards and mentoring. Some of the appreciation I give to him is he is available anytime, any place when I've had a need or a question of how to get some help. And some of our best discussions have been very late at night when we probably should have been sleeping. But please welcome our panel moderator, Jim Hayden.
Okay, we're going to get done on time, and we have questions we're going to go over with the panel that's here today. But I wanted to recap a couple things. You know, we go to these events and we think about people come up, and I'll use the word, people come up and they vomit and they talk about all these things that are going on. But the key is on our call to action. What are we going to do based upon the information that we hear? When Mayor Lewis talked about the immediate feeling inside, earlier when he spoke, when we leave today, what feeling do we have that we can make a difference for our young leaders in the community, as leaders that are going through our representing our community, and what it means to be a Gilbertonian and how we're going to excel as an organization. When John Huppenthal said to be civically ready and to be civically involved within our community, I can't underscore that enough as what we do as an organization and how we, as Gilbert leaders, are able to take that moving forward. And to focus on what Beth said is really open our eyes and the business connections and give voice is key in making a difference. And so with that, what I'd like to do is introduce our 5 panelists. I'm going to have them go respectfully to themselves. What I want you to think about for a minute is, as they introduce themselves, what they represent for the town of Gilbert. These 5 individuals represent more than 10,000 employees in the town of Gilbert. So this is where the rubber meets the road. This is where these individuals are employing these educated kids that we have, that we talked about education, 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 and getting done. But this is where they actually get employed. Welcome back, Joan. Where these employees actually get employed and making a difference in our community. So with that, we'll start on my immediate left. Introduce yourself, your organization, how many employees you represent here.
My name is Patience Breinholt. I work for a software development company called Unicon here in Gilbert. We are principally focused on software development for higher education and secondary markets that are attached to that, such as publishers and education corporations. We have about 150 employees right now.
Thank you.
I'm Mike Sims. I'm with Orbital Sciences Corporation. We have 1,500 employees in Arizona. We have about 300 of those in Gilbert, and the rest are down in Chandler. We focus primarily on rockets and space systems and satellites. We had a launch yesterday that didn't go so well. We had an umbilical cord that didn't go, so we're hopeful that that'll go soon. But we have a lot of engineering needs and technology needs.
Mike just mentions rockets to sound cool. Make sure that's clear. Dan?
My name's Dan Simon. I'm the president and CEO of a company called Heliae Technology Holdings. It's a startup algae technology company. We've developed an algae production system. We were started by Science Foundation Arizona, ASU, and members of the Mars family. We've been around for 5 years. We just crossed the 100-employee mark, so we're a little below where Orbital is. But we are focused on hiring engineers, biologists, microbiologists, physicists, and a number of operations folks as well. We're building a production plant just outside, south of Gilbert on Germain and Gilbert Road.
Welcome, Dan. Tim?
Good morning. My name is Tim Breaker. I'm the president and CEO at Mercy Gilbert Medical Center here in Gilbert, and also Chandler Regional Medical Center in Chandler. We have about 1,200 employees here in Gilbert, another just over 2,000 in Chandler. And we are part of Dignity Health, a provider of healthcare services in the state of Arizona, Nevada, and California. We have 39 hospitals in those 3 states. And I'm adding up as we go. Jim mentioned 10,000 employees among us. That means that Darren employs about 6,000 people.
That's correct. Good morning. I'm Darren Petoni. In 1999, I founded an organization called the IT Workshop, where we manage your technology so businesses can actually manage and grow their business themselves. We have 15 staff members and about 10 consultants, and we manage the technology for about 100 small, mid-sized businesses throughout Arizona.
Welcome, Darren. So we talk about, the mayor earlier talked about ambassadors and what it meant to be an ambassador, and I looked up ambassador. If you think about what we are as ambassadors in our community, you're a diplomat, you're a messenger, and you're a representative. And what does it mean to be a diplomat? What does it mean to be a messenger? And what does it mean to be a representative? Information that they've shared with you today as where the rubber meets the road on the employees that represent the town of Gilbert and what that makes a difference. So our first question for the panel is this. As workforce trends change and industry changes, where do you need, or where do we as Gilbertonians need to be able to help your workforce make the difference in the community? Where would you like to go?
I'll start. A couple thoughts. One, if you didn't know, the world of healthcare is in a time of change right now, and I don't want to talk about healthcare reform, but we live in a world right now of dramatic change, and before the passage of the healthcare reform law, it was a tremendous time of change anyway. When we look at large trends in our industry, what we see is, particularly here in Arizona, a very fast-growing population and an aging population. None of us are aging in this room, I realize, but the population around us is aging quite rapidly, and that has huge implications for our business. Folks that use hospital services tend to be, actually, I say older folks, pregnant women, and stupid young men. But with an aging population, the demand on our services is going up dramatically. The other thing that we're seeing is fairly significant shortages in our workforce, and that includes doctors, nurses, pharmacists, respiratory therapists, all the other what we call ancillary support staff that supports our business. When you throw in the healthcare reform law, we're wrestling with, well, all those trends I just mentioned mean more patients for us, more care that we have to deliver. The healthcare reform law is having a kind of a countervailing pressure. It's pushing utilization of healthcare services down to try to control costs. What that means for us in terms of a workforce is a big question. That's what we're wrestling with. But I will tell you that what we definitely need in this country and in our region is more primary care doctors and practitioners to take care of people, keep them well, keep them out of the hospital. That's what we're focusing on. We are also experiencing a significant shortage of primary care doctors in this country and locally. What that means to me is we will be hiring more and more non-physicians to provide primary care to patients, both in the community setting and in the hospital setting. So I'm talking about advanced practice nurses, talking about nurse practitioners, physician assistants, pharmacists, other, again, non-physician clinicians, and we are experiencing significant shortages in those areas. I can talk about the role of educational institutions in helping us address those problems, but those are some of the industry trends that are influencing our workforce trends and our thinking about education these days.
Thanks, Tim. Additional needs from the panel?
Well, I think one of the things that we face at Orbital is we can't sponsor H-1B visas. Our employees have to be U.S. citizens in a lot of situations. And so what we have to do is encourage young kids to get out in the community, and our young engineers to go out and do things like space explorers, get involved with FIRST. We sponsored a master IP person this year. So we've got to start encouraging them. I firmly believe that you have to get young people at the elementary level excited about science and math. So to that end, we've developed a Space Explorers program for some of our local schools.
When Mike said to get young people excited, obviously we want to be able to affect our K-12 system, and you heard John Huppenthal mention how our K-12 system, as well as it is, along with our high school system that we have. I'm curious from the panel's perspective, what in addition can the K-12 system do to make a difference in our hiring practices that you can then in turn be able to bring that into your workforce?
Let me back up for a second, Jim, there, because there is a piece of that our workforce needs are drastically changing. In the information technology industry right now in the United States, there's about 115,000 technology solution providers throughout the United States. Of those, maybe 40% of them are what you'd call managed service providers, like our company. Out of those, there's a research think tank group called Gartner, which is highly respected in our industry. They did some surveys recently that interviewed businesses between 100 employees and 499 employees and 500 employees and 1,000. Out of those, they found 46% of businesses are moving to the cloud, meaning a different type of data solution for access to information because they're IT resource constrained. So let me explain what that means. That means we have this incredible shift. And now I'm an entrepreneur, so I look at this as this is opportunistic for me, big time. There's this shift. There's this huge demand for new types of services. The qualified people that we have for those services are a lot less. And there's a gigantic gap between those qualified people. And we can either fill that gap with visas outside of the United States, or we can train to fill those positions. Many of those positions that we are hiring for as a smaller company didn't even exist 4 years ago. The title didn't even exist. We're talking about things like cloud architect. And I'm not talking about computer-aided drafting, those kind of solutions, advanced engineers. It's a new world in technology, absolutely, and it's changing the face. It's the fastest changing industry in the world.
That's interesting. You know, obviously, with you, our young children, and how advanced the technologies become to make a difference in how we educate our own kids. They're smarter than we are. My 12-year-old daughter's computer goes down, and she says, "Dad, can you help me fix the internet?" I go to help fix the internet. She goes, "You know what? Move out of the way. I'll fix it." And she fixes it because their knowledge base are so much more advanced, so much quicker. Because you think about it, everybody under the age of about 24 years old, everybody under the age of 24 years old was born with a computer in the house. And today, we all think about, we're shaking our head, yes, thinking computers didn't come around until way after, but that's their life. That's what they live. They go to research something. They don't pick up an encyclopedia. They go to Google. They go to Wikipedia. They go to different mediums. So from the educational perspective, back to the panel, what from a K-12 system can we do to encourage our education system to better prepare those students to make them more hireable for you?
I'll give that an attempt. First of all, we need to deliver our kids more competitive to the rest of the world. It's a global world, global competition, and kids coming out at 18 years old in Germany, Japan, India, or China are ahead of our kids. The areas where we need the most are going to be science and technology, and whether it be IT, biology, or aerospace, it's all going to require a science and technology background. So more math and science. I look at my own children. I think it's great that they know computers, but I've lived in Japan before, and I've lived all through Asia, and those kids come out ahead of our kids at 18 years old. So if there's one thing that I'd like to see happen, it's that these kids come out with more math and science and are ready to compete at a global level.
And I would say three things, K through 12, and it's similar to what you all are saying, but curriculum, focusing on STEM, as we're talking about here today. I think curriculum is absolutely critical, but one thing that Superintendent Huppenthal talked about was capturing the imagination of kids. And I think, I see Jared Ryan over here, I think about how do you capture the imagination of kids? I've got teenage kids in high school, and I know how you don't capture their imagination. You don't, get them up at 5 in the morning and put them in boring lectures. You engage them in the kinds of teaching and education that excites them. And, so that my second point is innovation. Innovative teaching methods that speak to children. Get them excited about what they're doing with respect to whatever the curriculum happens to be. These guys are doing fascinating, fabulous work over at Campo Verde in the biomed program. Third, I would say, is partnerships. Partnerships with industry. Let us work together. Again, we're doing some interesting partnerships with Campo Verde. We've got a significant volunteer program for teenagers in our hospitals. Every summer, we've got hundreds of kids that come over to volunteer. I can tell you, I have the most interesting and exciting industry, than anybody. When the kids come over and they see what's going on in the hospital, they get to interact with our docs, our nurses, everything that's going on. I'm telling you, they are so excited about what we're doing. They are engaged, and they're coming back. And when we teach them here, they come back to work here. So I would say innovation in curriculum, innovative methods to engage kids, and partnership with business and industry.
Anyone else?
Well, one of the things we do is we encourage our employees to engage their children in what they do. And to that end, again, we have a Build a Rocket night. And then the following Saturday, we take them out to a big field, and then we launch the rockets. And talk about enthusiasm and getting kids excited. So we kind of keep it in the family, if you will. We can't expand things too much. But those are the kinds of things. There's a lot of innovation and technology represented in this room today. I would encourage you to engage your workforce and their children as much as you can in what you do. We don't have open houses very often because of the nature of our business, but this past December we did. And it's not bring your child to work day so much as it was bring your family to work day in the evening. We did it after hours, and we had people come through, and we had demonstrations for the children and the spouses and families so they could understand what dad and mom do there. And I think that's really important to engage your children in what you do if you're excited about it, and encourage your companies to do the same.
I agree with what they're saying on all that. We need to engage the kids more in everything. I think that with the K-12 and community colleges and everything, one of the things that we see that we need more help with is soft skills in the students and everything, because when they're coming in, they may have the technical skills to work in our industry, but they don't have the soft skills for consulting firms and things like that. So I think we need to put some focus on that as well.
One of the things that I think patients said, a couple of them said throughout that process, was engagement, engaging the kids. And Tim touched on it when he talked about the kids that come into the hospitals that want to volunteer over the summer program. I'm going to put you on the spot, Tim. In the last year, when we had the summer kids volunteer, how many applications did we get for teenagers to come in to want to volunteer at the two hospitals?
Probably about 400.
And how many did we accept?
150.
400 applications to volunteer, no pay, and we accepted 150. That means, do the math, 250 kids who applied, who had to have a GPA of 3.8 or above, just to apply, did not get an internship or had to go somewhere else because we, at the hospital system, used 150 of those kids. So when I talk about volunteering and volunteerism, the next topic is internships. how as we as leaders within the community, we as leaders within our own individual businesses, and you might say, well, I'm only have an employer of 2 or I have an employer of 5. Who's to say you can't have an intern come in to be able to help grow that individual? They're starving for that information. And from an internship perspective, I'd ask the panel, what can we as ambassadors, what can we as leaders within the community do to improve the internship level, to take those 250 that weren't used at Chandler or Mercy Gilbert, to be able to bring into the workforce, to help educate them and help prepare our future employees to have our employers be more attractive to bring those inside. So internships.
We have internships, and I agree with Patience on the importance of teamwork and collaborative skills. We see a lot of solo contributors coming in. If you walk down the hallways, I've kind of gotten used to people walking and texting, but they still need to be able to carry on a conversation and make presentations to customers and what have you. I think the internships are very important. We have a number of students right now from ASU that we've kept as from interns more or less to co-ops, and I'll guarantee you, if sequestration doesn't strangle us, we will probably be able to hire those people because they have a passion for our business. I think internships are extremely important. I think the fellow we had for the Master IP program when he comes back this year is going to be much more effective in the classroom. He's been impressed with what he's learned from us and what we've learned from him. And I think that that is a way to, again, engage people at a very young level. So I can't say enough about the importance of internships.
We have 17 interns right now. We tend to keep between 10 and 20 all year long. And we do believe, very important, the engagement's there. It balances out the folks. For folks who don't even know what they want to do in the future.
And how do you recruit those interns?
ASU, U of A, people who send resumes into our website.
Okay, how about Chandler Gilbert Community College? Could we recruit from there?
Absolutely. We have, I forget the name of the high school that's right next to us where our plant is, but we're even trying to work with them to bring some of the high school kids in the summer. There, okay. Hi there.
I think he wants your attention. Yeah. Okay, so in recruiting of these interns of wanting to be able to make a difference. I mean, if you're 18 years old, 17 years old, and you're finishing your high school career, thinking about where to go to college, thinking about what I want to do as a leader within the community, how I want to make a difference, and that's what they're thinking about. How can I make a difference? If we have the opportunity to touch them at that junior level, that senior level. I'm involved in an IT company, and I was thinking about hiring an intern, somebody new into the company. What I do, I actually sent an email to our school principal. I said, hey, do you have somebody that can come in and we can intern in our company? Why not be able to train that younger leader to better prepare them for college? So I'll challenge everybody in the audience. If you don't have an intern that's working with you, get one. If you need some help doing it, I'll bet you every one of these people who have interns will lead you down the path to help you be able to get one. Don't make it an excuse. Step forward, help them, action, and make a difference in our interns. Anything additional internship from the team?
So Jim, this third question ties in with the second question as well. What do we need in education? Collaboration and innovation. Absolutely, right? And this is that collaboration right here. Here's what's so fascinating and what really gets me excited about our community right here. There's a program going on right now in Gilbert called Partners in Progress, where we have government listening. The town is listening to the needs. What does business need? Where we have ASU Polytechnic Campus and Chandler Gilbert Community College listening. What do the needs of business have in terms of graduates from college? And internship programs coming through this actual program. It's huge. This is where it starts. It's with people listening rather than just telling you about our programs. Let me tell you about our educational and all the things that we're doing, because we have a huge gap between the needs of business and what we're actually producing with a graduate. We still have, amongst this panel, I would imagine, a 2-year dilemma. It's fantastic to have great education in Arizona and higher ed, but when you hire a graduate, you have 2 years before those graduates become profitable in your business. And the needs of business have changed. That 2-year dilemma has to be addressed, right? The olden days, 5 years ago, that 2-year dilemma was okay because you had mentorship programs and larger companies were able to plug people in. Nowadays, we want workforce that's ready that can communicate directly with customers. And those soft skills, they're not so soft anymore. They're hard. They're hard to teach, but they're absolutely necessary.
That's super, Darren. So the last question for the panel is, we talked about the internships and being able, what we can do. So the panel, what can everybody here do as ambassadors to make a difference in the education that's received, in preparing our youth to be able to be employed, and to be able to keep it here without having to attract outside of Arizona? So we talked about all these areas of what we're doing in the system, what we're doing in STEM, what the town is doing, what the education system's doing. Now what can our ambassadors do to be able to affect your ability to bring in more employees into your organizations?
Well, I would keep it pretty simple. I would say do this. You know, I think this is a group of community leaders. The dialogue that goes on between leaders of government and business and other services in the community is absolutely critical. The dialogue that brings up these issues, I think, will lead us to make connections that we might not otherwise make. So I completely agree with what Darren is saying about the importance of collaboration and partnerships among different organizations. When we get together and we talk about it, I think we find creative opportunities for collaboration that we wouldn't otherwise find. So I guess I would put in a plug for continuing to sponsor this sort of forum and participate in this sort of forum, and then take it out of here and follow up with the ideas that pop into your head and make those connections and keep them going.
Thanks, Tim.
I think letting people know, letting students get involved with the schools and let them know what kind of jobs are out there, what's evolving, because it's like you said earlier, we've got jobs now that we never had before, and maybe the kids don't know it. So let them know. Get us involved so we can come out to your schools and talk to them and share with them what's going on. Algae technology, we never had that before when I was going to school. But there's a lot of stuff that's coming on. It's coming. It's evolving. It's becoming. It's new stuff. I go to schools and recruit. Nanotechnology, really? We didn't have that years ago. But man, it's a hot field now. So we've got to let these kids know what the opportunities are and get them excited about the different things that are going on in our world.
So Mike, you said let them know. So
Let them know.
Let's have a question for you. So when we talk about growth and the organic growth, and Darren talked about how long it takes for that new employee to come in or the intern to come in when they actually become profitable, one of the things that you might want to consider in your industry is that, have you thought about going to a junior, senior level high school, freshman level of college, and present and talk about what your organization does to get them excited about what you do so they can then learn to become a future employee?
We haven't gone to the junior colleges as much. We're working with ASU Polytechnical. We gave them a grant to work on a particular project, which I think is good. We're trying to, if you want me to come out and talk to your students, I'll be glad to do that. I'll even try to get a live engineer to come and talk. I'm pretty excited about what we do. Maybe not. I thought I had this coolest job that Tim thinks he does. So
they're going to arm wrestle afterwards. So we talked about what can the ambassadors do, what you all can do. So what you all can do is, your profession and what it is, who is interested in hearing about what you do? I will tell you that every high school in Gilbert, every community, our Chandler Gilbert Community College has an interest. You have something that's important to say. If you approach the appropriate person at the community college or at the high school level and talk about what you do as a profession, they will welcome that because they're always interested in hearing that. And if you're wondering how you can get in, how you can permeate that, ask, I'll help you. Any of us will help you be able to get in to do that. That's organically grow, organically educate on these things that these kids don't know about today to be able to better prepare them for the future. Additionally?
Yeah, just the request is engagement, I guess, will be the theme for this little panel. And please engage with kids you know, your students, whoever it is that you work around, and let them know that there are local companies that just don't have the resources or time to do the outreach to go out and talk to every single child out there. So it's up to each one of us to go out there and talk to the people we connect with, get them out there and get them on Helier.com, which is our website, and look at what jobs we have open.
Because you have the best job, right?
I think we do have the best job, yes. Multiple of them.
Patience?
I agree. I think the biggest thing that is challenging us right now is that the kids don't know what is out there. So I agree with what everyone is saying. We can't find software developers locally anymore And so we're having to look nationally. We do work with ASU Polytech to try and do interns and things like that, but we honestly haven't considered looking in the the seniors in the K-12 range. So that is something that I think I will take a look at as well.
Collaboration means no more silos, right? We're doing a lot of stuff in silos. Business, education, government. Coming together makes a lot of sense. It also means that even within the educational system, there's got to be more collaboration amongst top performers and lower performers, right? Arizona's unique. We absolutely do have a lot of charter schools here, and some are on the top of the list. I read U.S. News and World Report, and one of our charter schools is #1 in the nation here in Arizona. We also have some real low performers. What's so exciting about that, right? It gives us an opportunity. If we collaborate amongst the school systems, what's working? What makes this school better than this school? Are there concepts and ideas that we could take from this school and apply so that they're directly related to the needs of higher education and business and workforce development?
So best practices in the educational system.
Absolutely.
I'm curious, some of the educators that are in the room, do we talk to the other educators in other schools and talk about best practices? Or is it, this is what I'm doing, just in general? I'm curious. Come on, teacher, not want to talk?
Yeah, for the most part, yeah. Hi, I'm from Campo Verde. Yeah, for the most part, of course we're the best school, and I have the best job. But yeah, we're pretty much in isolation. We don't have the time to have like professional development to get together. I mean, we try. We have our PLCs this year, and that's been really helpful. But with other districts, no, we don't have that collaboration, and it would be so helpful.
So if you have a best practice, how do you share that? It doesn't get shared.
It doesn't get shared.
Why?
There's not enough time. How am I going to meet? I don't even know some of the other science teachers in the other districts. And resources.
Yeah, I'm a parent of these kids. I'm a parent of these kids, and best parent with the best kids, with the best kids. But I think I've been in the classroom, and they are overworked, and these resources are not ready available. I've watched the biomed struggle from just a little tiny blip on the map to what you see today. And it's phenomenal. And it would be phenomenal for Campo Verde to go over to the Chandler district and say, hey, this is what we've got going on. This is what's great. But time, resources is key.
So I think if we take the educational piece and we can allow our educational systems to be able to do some collaboration, talk about best practices, and I'm going to challenge you, Fran, to bring in an intern. From a public affairs perspective, better education, better kids, become better adults, have somebody that's locally grown to be able to help with public affairs would be great, right? Okay, you're challenged. Okay, yeah. Nobody else is going to talk because they're going to get an assignment, right? Yeah, Alan. Okay, I am humbled and honored to be in presence with this group of individuals and talk about where Gilbert has been, where Gilbert is, but most importantly, where we as a community need to go from an educational perspective. How important that it is to be able to feed our young leaders and not talk about if you're going to go to college, where you're going to go to college. Not if you're going to go to college, but what college you're going to go to. And it becomes a natural kind of in their head that this is just a natural step for them to be able to take. We talk about the statistics, and Gilbert's on the leading edge and what we're doing from an educational perspective, but let me share that we become that best practice. So we need to raise the foundation. So therefore, everybody, I hate to say to follow us, but to be able to take what we've done and be able to do that much better. So on behalf of our entire panel, today's presentation, and what they've been able to produce today, thank you very much, panel. And I have the best job, by the way.
I had the best job as it comes on. And part of, to Fran, so an internship, in addition to some of the other things you're doing as a mom, I think my wife would love to have some interns, so we'll have to talk. So in closing, and that was very helpful, so we're trying to inform and make sure that we're connecting and encourage and empower, but for some reason I'm just feeling inspired. And so all those who have been involved, thank you. There are probably 30 individuals that come to mind that I need to thank specifically, but I'm only going to pick out 2. So John, come on down here. Amanda, come to my right. Just very quickly, the 2 key organizers of today's Ambassador Forum, John Zupan, Amanda Elliott. Give them a nice big round of applause. Oh, another.
I stole her camera to take that.
To our panel, so 100 years ago, and this has been dialogue that we've had with our Arizona celebration, there was questions, well, 100 years ago, Gilbert was known as the hay capital of the world, so now we've got these satellites and the algae and healing and cardiovascular stem cell research and cancer fighting and technology, and here we are with some great leaders. Part of this discussion about the internships, that Spark App Award that will come on May 1st, we have some Gilbert schools who are competing. They would be outstanding interns. And so as the challenge came, and right here, we'll need to make sure that we get this group connected with those individuals because they are very sharp. They are amazingly sharp, and so we'll make sure they get placed because that's part of our Getting Gilbert College and Career Ready. But the emphasis on that internship I really appreciate, and some of the additional ideas and thoughts. And so to this group, how do we make it happen? Well, I get back to those 2 words, premier education. And Michael, it's a word that you said, and it's one of my favorites, and I use it often. So he referenced building rockets. And the word build, it's a Gilbert word. And we're building a business community and all sorts of other words we could use in building, and so we're doing it together. So I give, as a concluding statement, a call to action, which is summarized in everything that was said, but it's kind of a simple quote from an individual that, and you know, I forgot before that quote, a summary of some of the things today. You will receive an electronic message that will give you a link to a 3-minute video that Patrick talked about of what's been happening in development services to improve our business-friendly effectiveness. Our culture continues of we focus on open to business, and we take feedback, and that keeps us going. You'll also receive any of the PowerPoints that were used electronically. And the 5-year strategic plan, John just quickly grabbed, we have about 50 we've had in a nearby closet as you leave. If you'd like a hard copy, you can receive it. This will also be summarized in the electronic information you receive. And so we want to make sure you have tools of information, all the great definition of an ambassador. Thank you, Jim. So the call to action I close with is an individual that has been kind of in our hearts the last couple of weeks, an individual that his life was dedicated to getting communities college and career ready. And so his leadership is appreciated. We've recognized and talked about Eddie Basha the last couple of weeks. And so in closing, it just felt like a call to action would come from this great leader who's now shifted to another leadership sphere. Make education your business. It will feed your future. Thank you for being here. Till we meet, be good, be safe, and build. Thank you.
Nice to meet you. Good to see you. How you been? Thank you, Mayor. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you.
Love your blocking.
I guess I gotta go miss my It was fun. He's my car.
I will.
Thanks for having us.
Okay, so let me get with Fred and see if I can get him there next week. I'll email you.